contemplate the workings of the inner being. Your eyes are wide open, but are you really seeing? Into me I see. Into you I see.
No, into me I see.
Into me I see.
Into you I see.
My name is Cole.
My name is Batman.
You are Batman. I am Robin.
And when I'm not Batman, I'm Tar.
Right. And I'm never Robin. Because I'm not second to nobody. And it's a weird mask. I don't
Fly,
do that.
Robin, fly. Up to the sky, sky.
Is that a thing?
You don't remember that song?
No.
Oh, I guess.
I remember fly like an eagle
Yeah, it was around.
into the sea.
It was around the same time.
Was it? Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, my name is Tar.
My name is Cole.
We are Tar Cole, and this is Mentor in the Mirror podcast.
Before we even say another word, and that was a whole sentence, but not a single other word is going to go on until you pause this podcast and go over and review and rate if you're listening on iTunes. For realsies, y'all, with how many listens we have, y'all aren't leaving reviews. I love you. This isn't a judgment. I'm just saying pause this shit right now. Pop on over. Even if you don't usually listen on iTunes, nonetheless, it would mean the world to us if you would pause for a second, go leave us a review. We'll tag you on Instagram or, I guess you'd have to let us know your Instagram. Anywho, we appreciate when you take the time to do it. It
thank
really
you.
means a lot.
It helps us to get the word out to other people. Whenever we have reviews, people, we iTunes exposes this to more people. So please rate, review, subscribe.
Do that. And now, an unlikely pairing. I don't know. That's my announcer voice.
Of nipples.
Would they be unlikely though?
Yeah.
Intimacy.
Each nipple is an individual, and together they are intimate pair, and that is a likely pair.
Okay. Well, I think we should just call this one a wrap. And
thank you.
Thanks for coming. All right, intimacy. So we talk a lot about intimacy as it relates to connection and inclusivity. So a lot of our business, really at the core of it, is teaching leaders, CEOs, entrepreneurs, content creators about getting intimate with themselves, and then how intimacy, kind of like breaking down the roadmap to intimacy for them.
Oh, snap.
Are
we intimacy coaches?
Are we? Well, let's talk about first what intimacy is.
Yeah, let's talk about intimacy. So,
I think that a lot of people kind of lump intimacy and sexuality together, which is not the case, because intimacy is an intimate or an intricate connection.
Yeah. So, that's how I see it. That's how we work together. From my understanding, you and I are pretty aligned with what intimacy is to us. And there's a deep, intricate connection that one has with something else or someone else or some idea that causes an intimacy. There's a curiosity to it. And then there's an exchange between the person and whatever it is that they're looking to be intimate with or they're looking to connect with. Connection is a wonderful thing. There's different levels of connection. There's kind of connection, loose connection. Then there's deeper connection, which leads to intimacy. And then there's attachment, which is a grappling. And that's not intimacy. People often confuse grappling and attachment with intimacy, and it's not intimacy. It is someone holding on to something, and there's a fear that connection through attachment will be broken, and that drives a lot of really dysfunctional patterns. So intimacy is where there's a flow between a person and an idea, another person, or something. There's an attachment. There's not an attachment. There's a connection. There's a flow between the two, and it's a voluntary flow, and it's a mutuality.
I think that's the important distinction, is the mutuality, because that attachment energy, that needing, that almost like a desperation energy, is always one-sided, and it's something that I can perceive. I can feel when someone like needs me versus we are co-creating, or we're connected, or we are having intimate vulnerability, transparency, openness, because it doesn't have the resistance from one side or the other. It is that tantric flow of energy, the give and take, that is more continuous and mutual.
Well, for me, it's give and receive, but language is language. And there are times where people can have attachment on both sides. And one person can be attached to a person for one reason, the other person can be attached to a person for another reason. We see it in relationships where there's money sex dynamic, where people have an exchange in regards to that, and they'll hold on to a relationship for those types of exchanges, or a provider type of energy. One person is providing something, another person is providing, keeping the house together, that type of stuff. And these are attachment situations that are connected, but they are not intricate. They're not intricate to the point of having a mutual flow back and forth. So people, in my experience, have tied the idea of sex to intimacy because the languaging has been put together. We show people a different way, and I think when people are looking to have intimate situations with other people and they are not intimate with themselves, it drives a lot of issues.
Well, and I think that that's important too, is that you really cannot have, you can, well, from my perception, from my perspective, my intimacy with someone else can only reach as deep as my intimacy with myself. It's kind of like my life experiences and my willingness to see myself is reflected in my connection to someone else. So if I'm only being surface with myself, then I'm probably getting a surface interaction externally as well. And that's why looking at the relationships in your life is an incredible opportunity to reflect on, what's going on in your external experience of your world, because that's probably what's going on in the internal experience of your world. Like when I look back at when I thought everyone was being mean to me all of the time, I was being mean to me all of the time, and they were merely reflections of my internal experience. And, yes, I had to change my outer experiences and the people I was participating in relation to. However, until I changed those inner experiences and got more intimate with myself and creating that intricate connection, nothing really stuck. I would end up back in some of the old habits and people and paradigms.
Yeah, and intimacy with the self is a space of curiosity. If you aren't curious about yourself and what drives you to function, perform, and feel the way you do, how can you anticipate that someone else will? And so I came up with this thing a while back that we use, and we call it the roadmap to intimacy. And in order to be intimate with yourself or another person, the first thing you have to be able to do is physically tolerate yourself. If you can't physically tolerate yourself, if you stand in front of a mirror and you can't stand to look at yourself, you can't even be with yourself. If you cannot hold still and be with yourself and your thoughts and your feelings and your sensations, there's no way that you're going to be able to accept yourself. So it moves from tolerance to that acceptance space. And when you accept yourself, you can accept your position, where you are, how you are, why you are the way you are. And from there, and it's the same thing with another person, right? When you move from that physical, if you're in a room with another person and you can't physically keep yourself in that space, there's no way that you're going to ever go into a space of intimacy. But once you can physically tolerate yourself, you can accept yourself in that space. When you accept yourself in that space, you can check in with yourself to see if you feel safe. Am I safe? Am I threatened? Is my idea of myself threatened? Is my identity threatened? Is my life threatened? Is there anything that is threatening my safety? And once you have that safety space with yourself, right? Do I threaten myself? Am I going to hurt myself? Do I think that I can walk down the street without tripping and falling? All of these things are really important to have that safety space. And once you have that safety space, you can open up vulnerability, and you can open up vulnerability with yourself by asking yourself questions. and being honest with yourself, and just leaning into, why do you feel this way? What's making this happen? Why are you here? Why do you not like this? Blah
Where
blah
did
blah.
this belief come from?
Same thing.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with another person.
Well, one of the things we say all the time is that's in that self-reflection to say, who told you that?
Right. And so when you have that vulnerability space open with another person, you ask another person something, they give you an answer, and maybe they ask you something and you give them an answer. So there's a volley back and forth. And so the volley of vulnerability, and that includes being not just what you say, but being seen. What is your posture like? How do you walk? Do you like the way you dress and move into that space? Can you be yourself in front of another person? And can you allow another person? Can you accept another person in their space? And that's a vulnerability volley back and forth. And once you have that vulnerability back and forth, that is connection. Connection is vulnerable space back and forth between a person and a person, or a person and a thing, whatever. And once you have that space open, that's where the connection can start to become intricate. And that intricacy, the deep interwoven connection back and forth, that is intimacy. And so when you get into that space of intimacy, then you can build on the intimacy. And the way that we help people build on intimacy is we start with awareness. Are you aware of yourself? Where are you spatially? Where are you in your feelings? Where are you with all of this? And can you observe the people, places, things outside of you?
Mm-hmm.
And once you have that awareness, can you consider things? Can you consider why you are there? What's happening? How you got the way you got? Really deep into the thoughts of all of your processes around things. If you don't like strawberries, when is the first time you had a strawberry? What's it like when you put it in your mouth? Do you not like the bumps on it? Do you not like the moisture? What is it about it? And once you start to understand the depth of that consideration, you can move into a space of validation. And that's validating your truth around whatever it is, right? This is my truth. And if you're looking to be intimate with another person, what is their truth? And accepting their truth. You don't have to agree with it to accept it as their valid truth. And when we validate another person's truth, their safety starts to be even more fortified, because they can be themselves. They can be completely themselves. The same thing when you validate your own truth. This is true for me. Just because somebody else says it's not true doesn't mean it's not true. And you start to have that more safety. The safety starts to really get glued in when you have that validation space of your own truth. When you have your truth and another person's truth, you can both be safe, and that's when the connection can get even deeper, right? And so you move from that validation space into a space of observation. You observe your truth in the environment. You observe how it interacts with the world around you. You observe how other people interact with the world around you in that validation space. And so from that observation, you can invite, and you can actively be aware and invite another person in. Hey, this is what I'm seeing with myself. I'm looking to create a deeper connection with myself and a deeper connection with you. If you see this in me, can you bring it to my attention? And it invites another person to bring their awareness into your space, and your space, your awareness into their space. And so you have this intermingling, this commingling of observation. And that's the invitation. And when you want to actually shift and change things in your life and create things together, you invite someone else in for a collaboration. And you can invite yourself to collaborate internally. What is my internal environment, the internal environment of my body? Is it really collaborating with the outside world? How do I make these things mesh? Am I in an environment that works for me? Am I not? Have I been collaborating with my home? Have I been collaborating with my food? Have I been collaborating with my movement, with my business, with my friends, with my partnerships, and bringing all of that stuff together? And that is really, really a deep, deep form of intimacy creation. So you have the roadmap to intimacy, and then you have the intimacy build. And that's how we create intimacy with the people that we work with.
Yeah, and I think that in order to really have the feeling of expansiveness, of freedom within the body, I don't know of anyone that has obtained that without intimacy, without that deep, intricate connection to self in relation to others. And it doesn't mean in a relationship, like a construct of marriage, but in relation to, and being seen and being, feeling that freedom to be who you are. And whether or not people agree with it can still be separate from the feeling of, To be seen and to be accepted are two different things. Are you confident and comfortable being seen, regardless of whether people are comfortable with
Right.
it? And I think that in stepping into that intimacy, into that vulnerability, into that intricate connection with the self, you become so certain of who you are and that connection you have to self that you're not so easily swayed by the external opinions of you. And it's I've something I've witnessed through my own process and certainly through other people's processes is it's when I first started to develop that intricate connection with myself, I had to cut off some friendships and relationships and distance myself from, you know, family, friends, environments, jobs, whatever, because I did not have the fortitude or like the personal empowerment to draw the boundaries or withhold boundaries the way that I needed to. And so I had to create distance so that I could really connect more intimately with myself and get some fortification of that connection to myself. And then I started to surround myself with other people that could help support that my intricate connection to self and the things that I wanted. So then I started to surround myself with like-minded people, people that supported my ideologies. And now through my own personal evolution and expansive processes, I find now that I don't have to be surrounded by people that agree with me at all, because that I have that deep intimacy with myself and I have people and places that I can go to recharge and reboot and reconnect if I disconnect from myself. And I think that's been powerful with the work that we're doing now, is that I have the patience and the ability to sit in conversations and have intimacy with people that I do not have to protect myself from because I have solidified that intimacy with myself.
Yeah.
So I'm not questioning myself with them. I can question my beliefs without questioning myself.
Right.
And that's the difference.
That's that validation.
Yeah.
That validation is so important. And in the work that we're doing with people around racism and
Discrimination and
discrimination
bias.
and all of these and inclusivity,
Mhm.
it's really important for people to be able to recognize and validate themselves and their truths and the truths of the people around them so that they can feel safe enough to have this dialogue. If people are not safe to have the dialogue, if their construct of what is right and wrong, if their construct of religion, their construct of race, their construct of nationality is overpowering them and it causes them to physically feel unsafe, they will not be able to get into a deep dialogue. And this is where having an understanding of how the human body and the neurology, the nervous system works is really important, because when a person does not feel safe, there is a limited amount of logic that they can logic and reason that they can participate in, and the logic and reason starts to end where they have previously developed constructs around things.
Mhm.
So if the reasoning and the logic is built into the constructs, the brain will only utilize what it has learned to reason with that stuff. New reasoning spaces will not be allowed to be introduced.
Yeah.
So if a person's truth is invalidated, they cannot be logical or reasonable on a physiological standpoint. So it's really important to be able to validate another person's truth and just honor it. And so telling someone, oh, the racism doesn't exist, or telling somebody sexism, you're just making these things up, it causes their nervous system
Well,
to
it's
shut
like
down.
telling somebody poverty doesn't exist just because you haven't experienced it.
Well, I mean, it causes another person to be defensive, and it causes
Yeah.
their conversation power to disappear. You will not be able to get in and actually explain these things to them. This is why we always talk about safety. The safety is the pinnacle thing in our business, is to make sure that other people feel safe and that we feel safe so that we can have this type of dialogue. It's really, really important when people are looking to be intimate. That safety aspect is really important. When you are not safe, their intimacy is going to be limited to none.
Well, and as we've expanded in this work as well, it's actually fascinating how many people don't know what safety is. And it isn't necessarily that they have or haven't experienced it. They may have been so busy they never acknowledged when they were safe or when they weren't. So without that awareness of the self of, am I safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you can miss the fact that you're not feeling safe because you're in a nervous system response of fight or flight or whatever. You're in a protective position, a protective posture, and you are not open to connecting with someone else. And in recognizing where your body is can give you a huge cue and a huge clue that you're closed off in that moment because you're not feeling safe, you're getting defensive, you're feeling protective, and remove some of the stigma, something's wrong with you, or, you know, anxiety. Like for me, a lot of times anxiety is with people we work with, anxiety is someone not feeling safe in their ideas, in their spirituality, in their relationships, whatever, or in a future idea, they're no longer feeling safe. So if their future was compromised, let's say they were in a relationship, the relationship broke up, their future happiness was wrapped in that future, or what their future happiness was wrapped up in that story. So now their safety in the future has been compromised.
Right.
And so in understanding these elements, you go, oh, well, I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling unsafe.
Right.
Because I find that is kind of at the root of anxiety a lot of times, is what's at risk.
Right. And anxiety is a future-driven
Right.
syndrome. And this is one of the reasons why we look to keep people very present in their connection.
Yeah.
Because safety is a very now thing. You are safe right now. You're not safe in the future. Safety in the future is an idea.
Right.
And that is security.
Right.
And people often confuse safety and security like they confuse sex and intimacy. Safety and security, safety is an actuality in the moment of now. Security is an idea in the moment of the future. And the future never really happens until it happens, and then it is the now.
Right.
So the idea, the projection of safety in the future can cause the body to be looking for what would go wrong in all of these problems, and it causes the body to look for something that's not in actuality in a moment, and it causes the body to be nervous. Right. Because the body's looking. If I tell you that an animal is coming, your body's going to start to prepare. A tiger's coming in the room, your body's going to start to prepare for the tiger. It's going to look for the tiger. It's constantly looking for the tiger, but the tiger's not
or
there. Or
spider or cockroach or whatever is a threat.
Whatever. Or somebody's coming to shoot you.
Correct.
Your body is going to prepare for it, and it's looking to create safety in a space where there is no safety needed because there is no animal.
Right. Or the relationship, you think the other person might break up with you. All of these things that goes back to safety. Mm-hmm. And so when you can develop what your tools are to get you back to safety, to get you back to that intimate connection with the self, that mm-hmm. is where safety lies.
Well, I mean, and this is also developing an intricate relationship, an intimate relationship with your own personal safety and yes. how you keep yourself safe. This is a thing, man. You know, people want to create all of these relationships with I want to have this relationship. I want to have this wonderful partner. You don't feel safe with yourself. Right. And if you don't know how to feel safe with yourself, that intimacy, you can, this concept, the feeling, the idea, the actuality of safety is something that you can be intimate with. Are you intimate with your own safety? Do you know what it feels like to feel safe? Do you know what your body temperature is like? Are you hungry when you feel safe? Of course you're not hungry, you know, or maybe you're stuffing food down your throat to make you feel safe, to pull you away from anything else you're yes. feeling. What is going on with you? What is your intimacy with the idea of safety, with the concept and the actuality of it? And this is all part of delving into this space. You know, when you look at oppression, you know, if a person is being oppressed, they're not going to feel safe. How are they going to connect?
Right.
You know, and so.
Well, let alone be able to be rational or chat through things or even say what they need. And it's like part of the overcompensation we've seen with like white coaches or just not, you know, people that are, well, however they identify, there is an overcompensation of going to Black folks and being like, what can I do for you? Just let you know. And it's almost like it's that needing energy, that it is their own individual discomfort and not feeling safe, because whether they're feeling compromised in their integrity or their spirituality or their idea of themselves, that needing energy comes in and there is no space for intimacy. Nope. to see the other person, to actually communicate needs. And then the person on the receiving end of that's like, whoa, like get off me. You know what I mean? Yeah, like well, it's a gross energy.
Again, it goes down into the space of not understanding your own relationship
Mm-hmm.
to a concept and or a system like racism. Racism is a very intricate, complicated system, and if a person has no idea how they are interwoven into it and
Yeah.
how they interact in regards to it, if they're oblivious to it or whatever, if they are not intimate with their ideas around what racism is, and then also validating the ideas of other people around racism, they're never going to be able to have a conversation, a level-headed conversation with other people, because of all the guarding and stuff that comes up. How intimate are you with your idea of racism, your actions and your situations on racism, how other people perceive you in regards to racism or sexism or whatever?
Yeah.
How is that happening with you? Can you actually talk about it? Or when you talk about racism, do you get flooded emotionally and are you're completely unavailable to talk about it? This is a space where you are not safe.
Yeah.
And so, can you be around a person who keeps you safe in this? And this is the environment that we provide when we are talking to people about racism, around oppression in general. Is, cool, hey, if this is what's been happening, it's valid here, and your vantage point is valid here, and I'm in a safe space with it. I will not allow myself to be abused or oppressed or anything like that. So I'm not worried about you oppressing me. I don't care if you're a racist or not, and or if you are participating in racism or not. I don't care. I'm down for the conversation, and you're safe here. And no matter what you have done, if you have oppressed people, if you've been physically violent to people or whatever, you're safe to talk about it here, so that we can get to the root of what's going on. Let's get into the intimacy and the intricacy of what's causing you to perform the way you do, and are you aware of it or not?
Yeah.
And when you get into that space, that's kind of safety, that's where the work can happen. And this is why we provide the environment that we have in our retreats, in the groups that we do, in the things that we provide people with, in our one-on-one coaching, in our corporate situations. We provide this space for people to have these conversations with themselves first, and then the people outside and around them, so that there is a safety environment, so that everyone's truth is validated and nobody is thrown under the bus for what they have done or how they behave.
Well, until a truth is validated, it can't be included.
Nope.
It's not possible.
Mm-mm.
And so if you're listening right now and you've got a team or you're in a relationship, whatever the case may be, really pause for a moment, because if you aren't providing a space for people to find the safety within themselves, maybe, well, I'm not going to get into the how you can do that in this episode today. But if your team, if your spouse, if your partner, if your children do not feel safe, and that's not something you can give them, by the way, again, we'll talk about that on a different episode. If that safety is not there, they cannot be honest. They're still holding back. They're not going to have the same transparency, authenticity, and vulnerability, because they cannot, on a physiological level, think rationally. And so even when you harshly judge someone for not telling the truth, you are overlooking the physiological impacts of not feeling safe. So we'll dive deeper into this as time goes on, as weeks go on, whatever. Just really check in with yourself, with your intention. What kind of space are you looking to provide yourself? What is safety to you? Stand in front of that mirror. Do I feel safe? Do I feel safe in my life? Do I feel safe in my partnership? Do I feel safe at my job? Maybe you've got a boss that's really hard on you and you feel unsafe in that environment. That will always have physical impacts and ramifications long term. So just something to consider. And, as always, we love you, and that will never change under any circumstance, whether or not we agree or want to participate in all of your choices. You are loved.
You are
just
loved.
as you are right now in this moment. Really take that in. You are accepted here. We love you.
You are welcome here.
And if at any point you want to come to a retreat, you can head over to our Instagram at @TaCole. Shoot us a message. Let's start a conversation. We don't work like other people do. We don't have sales teams. We don't have funnels. We are here. And if you would like to participate in what we are doing, you are welcome to come and join. So as always, if you haven't already, Rate, review, subscribe, share this with a friend. And until next time, my name is Cole.
My name is Ty.
This is Mentor in the Mirror podcast. Be free.